to see. All right, so we are recording, and I will have Lynn take it away.
Thank you, Beth. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really thankful that you're participating today. So I appreciate your participation, especially after lunch. So, and it looks like we are a relatively small group. So I am happy to take questions throughout the presentation if you want to raise your hand or put something in the chat box, or even if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, if that makes more sense to you. So I'm Lynn Forsyth. I'm the Executive Director of the Jefferson County Literacy Council. Our Literacy Council is celebrating 20 years of business this year. So it has been around for quite a few years in this region. We serve 8 communities within Jefferson County, and we also have a correctional education program at the Jefferson County Jail. So for those who aren't familiar with Jefferson County, we are located right in between Milwaukee and Madison. We are a rural county, and we have a population of about 85,000 people. Our organization annually serves about 200 people, and we do have a small staff, but we also use a lot of volunteer tutors for our work, as many of you do. So as I indicated, we are a rural county. This presents a lot of transportation challenges for us. We do not have any public transportation, so everyone does have to be transported by vehicle. However, although it seems, you know, a little bit odd that we don't have public transportation, we are a public transportation corridor because we have highways that run east-west, which would be Interstate I-94, and north-south, which is Highway 26, going all the way into Illinois. So one of the interesting things about that dynamic is that we do end up with individuals who are incarcerated in the Jefferson County Jail who may be, you know, traveling through the county for some reason. And so we do see a pretty wide range of demographics as well as hometowns, so to speak, from the individuals that we serve in our jail program. 9% of our residents do not hold high school diplomas, but in our jail program, that is even higher, sometimes close to 50%. 11% of our population would be considered people of color, though we primarily serve the Hispanic population. Our African American Black population is relatively low, except again in the jail, because we do have individuals who come from around the state as state inmates into our jail population. Our jail size, we have 229 beds. And right now we are under state contract with the Department of Corrections for an additional 28 inmates. Those Department of Corrections inmates can stay for up to 120 days, except now with COVID, we have seen people staying much longer because many of the state facilities are not taking transfers of state inmates if they're having an outbreak or something happening in the facility at that time. Our jail was built many years ago. It probably needs to be renovated and reconstructed, but it has very limited access for education and programming. So everybody shares one multi-purpose room within the jail. That's our classroom. And when people were coming into the jail, it was also hosting meetings of all kinds, either something for treatment programs or mental health programming, and also educational services as well as religious services. So we all have to share that space. We don't leave a lot of things in the space. And now during COVID, it's actually used to allow people to just get out of the cells or out of their housing units to just have a break and look at a different set of walls, frankly. We have been in the jail for 11 years. We do receive AEFLA funding for this program, and typically we serve about 100 students per year. This last year with COVID, we served 97 students, but we only had 80 students that had 12 or more hours. So that's what we submitted as part of our grant. One of the challenges in doing correctional education, especially in a county jail setting, is that the length of stay can be relatively short. I mean, people can be there as little as overnight, but the average maybe is around a 30-day stay. So we do see a lot of turnover, and sometimes that's a real challenge trying to get people pre and post tested and get them some education during that short period of time. Our county has a collaborative group called the Community Justice Collaboration Council. I actually hold a seat on that council, which is especially helpful to us with our correctional education program, because you have an opportunity every month to sit with some of the decision makers for the county. So we have judges, the district attorney, the county administrator, various entities represented on that group. So it's really helpful for us to have that opportunity for them to get to know me and our program, and for me to have a working relationship with the county decision makers as well. As a result of that group, then I also chair another group called the Reducing Recidivism Coalition. And that is more a group of agencies, but some of the same people sit on both groups. And my role is to really help people understand the different services that are available in Jefferson County. Because one of the challenges we have also is that people come and go kind of frequently from their positions, and a lot of people commute into our county to work. So they don't necessarily live here, and they don't necessarily know all of the services that are available here. So I was asked to do a similar presentation to this yesterday through the AEFLA programming for Common Ground. And Leonard Simpson, the WTS state administrator, said, well, just, put down what the problem is. Well, so this was my attempt at getting his comments into one concise screen. But really, we've always had a need for education in correctional facilities, just mainly because the individuals do tend to have lower levels of literacy and also lower levels of high school graduation. So there is a good reason to be doing correctional education, but now with COVID, the addition is really trying to keep those incarcerated populations healthy and safe during COVID. So our challenge is, as educators, and especially grant-funded educators, we're very focused on, laser focused on education and measurable skill gains and credential attainment. But the jail, their staff is thinking about security, safety, health. So the priorities are not necessarily the same. And we have to find a way to bring those two entities together to create a successful program. In terms of who has the problem, obviously we all need to work at this together. I mean, as an educational group, we can't come in and dictate what kinds of efforts we're going to put into their facility. It has to be a collaborative effort. And the jail administrators and staff have to really help us deliver our services, especially now that they're on the inside and we're on the outside. we are really incumbent upon their staff to collaborate and cooperate with us. And since they have, really been dealing with COVID, their schedules are very different than they were pre-COVID. And so now it's not just working with one person. It's not just one educational coordinator, but it's really everybody in the jail, because everybody is on a different schedule. And on any given day, when we go in there to provide programming, we're going to be working with a different person. So those are some of our challenges. The problem obviously needs to be solved to continue to try to address skilled labor shortages. And even though right now unemployment is high, employers are still looking for people with the right skills, and there are still shortages in those areas. Why should the problem be solved? Okay, and Holly is asking if I can share my webcam, so I'll try to do that. Hold on, Holly. Can I put it on top? No.
So Lynn, we see you, we see the PowerPoint, and then we see you on top.
Okay.
And can everybody see the PowerPoint? One reason that sometimes we don't share camera when we share the PowerPoints is just so the font is bigger on the slide. So if anybody has any trouble with that, please please let us know. But yeah, right now it looks great.
Okay, all right. All right, and then of course, we will know if the problem has been solved when there are skill gains and credentials. But really, in this point in time, it's when we have a healthy community and healthy individuals inside the jail. So one of the barriers that was imposed by us was the short notice. As we all experienced, one day we were all going to work and delivering instruction, and the next day it was a far different story. So we really had no warning to vacate the jail. We were just told, as of tomorrow, you're out. So we are now prohibited from entering the facilities. We have not really been able to go back in there to do any programming. We saw significant numbers of people released into the community, and we struggled to get post-testing on those individuals. We did make an attempt to try to send them letters and ask them to make arrangements with us to come to the office to take a post-test. We even offered incentives for people to do that, like gas cards and food cards, but nobody took us up on it. It was just not successful, but we tried. We now cannot have people together in a classroom. We have to have everyone separated by housing unit in case there is a potential outbreak. They don't want people from 15 different housing units commingling in one classroom. So at this point in time, we're serving small groups by housing unit, but we cannot have the same class size that we had in the past. Our jail does not have security measures in place for the internet. Even though we do have internet in the classroom, we don't have any of those lockdowns or security measures that some of the other facilities have put into place. So that presents a challenge for us. We even have one bigger challenge in that our jail put in Wi-Fi without us really knowing about that. They installed it for the county health nurses so they could do electronic charting. But then now that even restricts us even more in terms of the kinds of technology we can use, because we can't allow it to connect at all to Wi-Fi. And then I mentioned previously, our jail staff schedules were adjusted. So in order to get fewer people into the facility at a time, they went on 12-hour schedules, 7 days on and 7 days off. So that really is a challenge for us because, you know, we're working with our educational coordinator. That person is now off for 7 more days. So that's why it's really important right now to have a relationship with all the staff in the jail. So these are some of the solutions that we have used. The first one obviously is just to open up the lines of communication and really respect the needs and boundaries of all parties. Because as I mentioned, you know, we're focused on educational gains, but they're really thinking about cleaning the facility, making sure there isn't an outbreak, you know, taking care of all the other needs that they have within the jail facility. So we just have to understand that and respect it and do what we can. So one of the first things I did though was work to increase access to instructional materials within the facility. Each of the 15 housing units has a book cart inside for paperback books and novels, but I asked if we could add GED prep books and instructional materials to those book carts. So with Beth's assistance and some of the funds from the Department of Children and Families grant, we were able to purchase a set of text materials to place into those housing units. We also then created individual packets and we're distributing those into specific individuals. But what the jail did offer to do was bring each of the housing units down to the classroom. I think they're at about 4 times a week. They're allowing them to come down there, just get some time out and work with our materials and pick out new books from the book carts to check out and take back to their pods. So that was a very low-tech solution, but that's where we started. And we were able to turn things around pretty quickly and at least get materials into their hands. The next thing we did though was talk about getting on Zoom. And so it was actually the jail captain who said, well, we'll let you put people individually on a laptop in the conference room. And we feel confident, they said that, you know, it's pretty secure. Even though they're on a live internet connection, there are security cameras watching them at all times. So we're okay with that. So we said, okay, that'll work. So we started meeting one-on-one with individuals on those on that laptop in the conference rooms. But as COVID continued and the situation, you know, looked like it was going to really be extended, then we had a lot of competition for space in those conference rooms because now the nurses and the social workers and the district attorney and the parole agents, everybody needed to meet with their clients on Zoom in the conference room. So we became now a lower priority for space in that facility. So then I said, well, is there any way we can get back into our classroom to help alleviate some of the conflict for space? And so we started talking about a way to create a multimedia cart. And and I will have pictures to show you in just a minute here. So we created a multimedia cart with a video conference monitor and a wireless keyboard and mouse that could either be locked up or removed from the room so that they no longer had access to either go onto Facebook or some other site that wasn't approved. So once we had the Zoom instruction in place, then we purchased another software program, which is the TI Smart View for Math Print Calculators software. And I know Ann Beeson was just in the annual meeting. We are using the New Readers Press calculator practice for the GED test to work with that Smart View system. So this is a picture of the cart. This is the multimedia cart that I actually purchased. You can see that it is lockable in the bottom cabinet area. And so we are able to put a CPU in there, the keyboard, the mouse, everything gets locked up, and the teacher is just speaking with the students through the monitor, which happens to look like this. It has the webcam already built in, speakers along the bottom, the microphone, and we can now put about 3 to 4 people around this monitor and hold class if we have 3 or 4 people in a particular housing unit that want to participate. This is the emulator software. We installed this on the instructor station only. The students are able to use their calculators from our classroom. So the staff will give them their calculators and the teacher will use the emulator software on Zoom to help deliver the math instruction. Next thing we took a look at was the use of study buddies. And again, you'll see a picture of those in a minute. But study buddies are handheld units that do not require any internet access. So the nice part about them is that they do track the time that individuals spend on the unit and the test scores so that we can submit those as proxy hours for our grant. And again, we've been pairing those with the TABE Score Boost booklets. And also our teachers put together a set of PowerPoint notes for each of the lessons that are delivered on the study buddies. And we'll talk about those a little bit more in just a bit. And then the other solution we've been using, this is all a little bit higher level technology, but you may have been at conferences where you've heard about the Rachel server. And again, we'll show some pictures of that and talk about it a little bit more. But we purchased the Rachel server and the Justice Tech Solutions laptops last year. And so they're still in the jail. And the jail staff feel secure in allowing individuals to use those. So they are letting them go into the multipurpose room, take their laptops, and use the programs from Rachel while they're in that multipurpose room. In addition to the Rachel server, we have added some instructor developed content, and we're still working on some more content to put onto Rachel. And we also installed Microsoft Office on those. So this is a study buddy. So this will give you a sense of what the study buddies look like. They are like the Game Boys of the past, and they do a lesson along with 10 to 12 multiple choice questions. So individuals select a multiple choice response, and then there is a quiz at the end. And all of the content is delivered via these cartridges. And there are cartridges available for the entire GED series, as well as in Spanish. The only one you'll see is there is no Spanish cartridge for social studies. They tell me they're still working on that one. But the cartridges also are available for the TABE reading levels. So for individuals that already have a GED or a high school diploma and just need to work on skill development, we're able to use these Pathfinder cartridges to match to their current TABE levels. And then there are also mechanics cartridges on basic skills, both in English and in Spanish as well. So one of the nice things about using these, Score Boost is that they're relatively affordable, and we can put them into a packet and send them into the jail for people to use independent of, having a lot of instructor guidance. And so we have been pairing those Pathfinder study buddies with these Score Boost packets and the PowerPoints to help give people material to work on inside their housing units. So this is the Rachel server. It's not large. It is really only about the size of your hand. But on Rachel, there are, I don't know that I've even counted, but there are plenty of programs that have been loaded on here that are all open source materials. So some of the examples are things like there's Khan Academy on here for math and science in both English and Spanish. So that's really helpful for our bilingual students. There are like 2,000 TED Talks loaded on here, and individuals really appreciate listening to those. Great Books of the World. There are K-12 and college textbooks loaded on this server. There's the Goodwill Community Foundation programming, power typing so they can practice their keyboarding skills, Wikipedia, and even some re-entry resources. So normally all of that content is housed on this server, but when I purchased these Justice Tech Solutions laptops, I actually asked for most of that content to be loaded right on the laptop. They couldn't fit 100% of the material just because of memory space, but almost everything has been loaded on here. So they don't even have to connect to the server. They can just open up the laptop and go. The laptops are clear, so there's no opportunity to hide contraband. There are no openings on the computers for a flash drive or any way to connect to the internet. The only way that can happen, and the way that we can download additional material to these laptops, is through a docking station. And then they can get to the internet. One of the other things that we did was we loaded this. When we asked for the programs to be set up on the laptop, the students had been using some CD-ROM discs that we had with some basic Spanish lessons on them, just conversational Spanish type of things. So I asked to have those loaded on here, and he was actually able to do that. So we do have an individual right now who is incarcerated right at this moment. He wanted to work on his Spanish, so he's been using the Rachel laptops to learn conversational Spanish as well. And then of course, everything needs to be plugged in. So we had to also purchase a wall safe. This is the type of unit I purchased for the jail to plug everything in to make sure that everything gets returned and recharged. But this is all now jail staff responsibility. So, it does add quite a bit to their workload, but they're all very supportive. They see the need for the program, and so they really do help facilitate it in whatever ways they can. So this is another solution that I honestly can't tell you a lot about. It's in the program from yesterday when I also was on with the House of Corrections in Milwaukee and Milwaukee Area Technical College. So this is an idea that MATC has to try to connect into their classroom at the House of Corrections. So if anyone is familiar with the Yay link and the internet connections that go with that, this is just a suggestion of something else you might be able to try. So of course, everyone says, how are you testing people in the jail? So we are doing a variety of things. The first one is pretty low tech, but it works every time because paper and pencil doesn't fail as often as technology. So we are using the paper and pencil version of TABE 11 and 12, and we are administering that through the glass visitation booths. So we're able to arrange a time on the schedule to go into the visitor area or the lobby area of the jail and administer the test through those glass visitation booths. If we have a math test that requires a calculator, we just hand the packet to central control and they make sure it gets to the individual who's testing. And so far, it's been working pretty well. It does require the assistance of jail staff and cooperation, but like I previously said, they've been really good about it. We also are using the Steck-Vaughan GED practice test, the paper and pencil version. We've had a couple people work on those, so they have a sense of the kinds of questions that will be on the GED. Of course, we want to work towards virtual test proctoring, but we're not quite there yet. We do have the TABE Data Recognition Corp Insight site loaded on both that multimedia cart and on the laptops that we use in the classroom. We have used this when we were doing face-to-face. We had a volunteer who was actually doing virtual test proctoring, or I should say electronic test proctoring. But we have not really had the ability to do the virtual test proctoring yet because the jail is still concerned about people being on a live internet connection without supervision. So one of the things we're exploring right now is to look at doing the share screen over Zoom, but actually in reverse, so that when the jail staff would set up the electronic test, they would share the screen back from the student to the instructor. And then the instructor can watch the student take the test and know exactly when that person finishes and they're on a live internet link. So that's kind of where we're going now. We haven't really made a lot of use of this yet because I still have to document all of the procedures and make sure that we have approval to do all of that. But we're hoping to get to virtual test proctoring. And then our third solution is to have a in-house GED administrator for GED testing. So about 2 years ago, we used to have Madison College come into the facility. They would schedule, bring in a laptop, try to connect Pearson VUE, but we found that more often than not, either the technology would fail or, the scheduling just didn't work out. It was a part-time GED administrator, and maybe her schedule wasn't the times that we needed her to test, or, she had to cancel on occasion. So we asked if we could set up an in-house GED testing center, and Madison College worked with us on that, and that's what we did. So we now have a mobile workstation that has 2 GED computers on it. So we have one for the student that's on a rolling desk that moves in and out of the closet, and we have an admin laptop. And the jail sergeant is able to do the testing right there in our classroom. We're able to keep the mobile workstation connected to the internet at all times, which was another issue we had with Madison College because, Pearson VUE would send updates, and maybe by the time they arrived at our facility, they hadn't received the latest updates. So now we have the internet connection at all times. And so we know that the GED test computers will always be current. So this has really helped us. The jail sergeant, of course, has some scheduling conflicts as well, so it doesn't always go smoothly. But at least during COVID, we've been able to continue doing GED practice testing and GED testing by having a jail staff member inside the facility to do that. So this is kind of the end of my presentation, and we're going to have lots of time left for questions, but it's just really going to be up to you if you're thinking about doing a jail program or if you have a jail program to really develop a shared vision between your jail administrators and yourselves. Every facility is different. All the dynamics within a jail are very different. And so it's really going to be, I think, a one-on-one kind of situation for people to really get a solution that meets the needs of a particular facility. Once you have your plan, I hope that by listening to this, you have some ideas about selecting some materials or some technology that will fit into your plan. But there are plenty more out there. I mean, this is where I went, you know, when I was faced with the COVID challenge. But the marketplace is full of different techniques, technology, software, lots of different options to create a plan that can work for you. Some are going to be, you know, simpler and less expensive. Some are going to be more complex and more challenging to implement. But either way, we're still trying to make that impact on the incarcerated population. Because we are grant funded, we are required to track all of the provide documentation and tracking for all of the virtual instruction that we're providing. So we're just doing, you know, what we know how to do, which is Excel spreadsheets with pivot tables, and we're logging all of our hours on a monthly basis for the Zoom calls, for the time that they're working on their assignments, for the time that they work on study buddies or on the Rachel laptops, and compiling all of that information to submit for our grant reporting. So, I mean, if you create some kind of virtual systems, it does become really challenging sometimes to know how to document that and how to report it. So this is what we've created. I'm happy to, you know, help anyone talk that through if they need that assistance. But it's just something that you're going to have to document. Be flexible and vary the delivery. Like I say, we have migrated along the way. When some things didn't work as well as we had hoped, like the laptop in the conference room, then you have to rethink it and move on to something else. And definitely we're going to be focused on quality over quantity at this point. We are not going to see the same numbers of people we served last year, primarily because of the, you know, fact that we're one-on-one or in very small groups now, as opposed to a classroom of 10 or 12 students that we had in the past. So, but we are focused on trying to serve individuals to the very best of our abilities. I am checking to see on the participant list if Sia Waring has signed in. Sia thought she might be able to join us. She has been our lead instructor going through this process with us, and has just been a real trooper, you know, developing relationships with all of the jail staff in the facility to keep this going. So I do have our contact information here. If you need to reach out to me or my instructor, Sia. And then Sergeant Lisa Handro is our educational coordinator at the Jefferson County Jail, and her contact information is here as well. So, Beth, are there any questions? It's a little hard for me to see everything.
Yes, no. So everybody, we can take a couple of minutes, yeah, and you can type your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I know that we've got a couple other jail programs on as well. And so if anybody else would like to chime in with something that Lynn is doing that they are also doing and have found successful, or if you're doing something different, we would love to hear from anybody else on the session today that is involved in a jail program. So just wait a couple of moments here to give folks a chance to write in the chat or raise their hand, questions or comments.
Hi, Lynn. This is Lori Jarvis from Fox Lake Technical College.
Hi, Lori.
I was on your session yesterday, and thank you for providing a lot of really, really good information. If you would want to choose one or two things to try to pursue, what would you recommend trying? I mean, if we're doing nothing now, so what do you think would be the best thing to try?
Well,
or, I mean, what did you have most success with, I guess?
That's a hard question because based on your own facility, a lot is going to depend on how much support you can garner from your jail staff. Because they, at various levels of this have to be involved. So I think you have to kind of gauge how much commitment you're going to be able to get out of the jail. But I mean, obviously the low-tech solution of passing, tape score booths and packets of material back and forth is the easiest. All they have to do is receive them and deliver them and pass things back to you. But if they're willing to do the study buddy, if they're willing to go to that degree of bringing people to a space or allowing them to have the units in the housing pods, I mean, I think those are really pretty nice because the curriculum is well developed. I was really surprised when I first, had a demonstration and able to look at it. The curriculum is very well aligned with the GED, with college and career readiness standards, with the TABE levels, everything. So, but, somebody's going to have to either find a way to distribute them, pick them up, charge them, let them go to the classroom. It takes a little more work on the part of the jail staff to make that happen. But I think they could be very effective if you can get that commitment.
Can I just add, how many study buddies do you have at the jail?
Right now, there are 15 in the jail that are checked out to people.
Thank you.
And the nice thing about the study buddy, in particular during COVID, is they get labeled with the person's name. So I use a label maker. I put their name on it. I put their name on the charging cord. And so every time they go into the classroom to use that, they're only touching that one piece of equipment that has been assigned to that individual person. So they're not sharing, there's not a concern about cross-contamination or anything like that. And then when we get those units back out, were able to download all of their information regarding the time that they spent on the unit and the scores.
Excellent. Thank you, Lynn. Stephanie would like to know how you got onto the CJCC.
Could you repeat that one? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So Stephanie asks how you got on to the CJCC.
Oh, how did I get onto the CJCC? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, one day I answered my phone. That's what happened. No, the CJCC was formed and intact actually when I assumed this role as the executive director of the JCLC. And they were going into a process to create a drug treatment court. And so it was actually the jail administrator at the time, the captain in charge of the jail, recommended me as a community member on the CJCC. So, and I've been on there ever since. So it's been over 5 years.
Excellent. Another couple questions are about study buddies and how much they cost.
Okay, the study buddies are $2.99 per unit. And when you purchase a supply of them, and the smallest supply I think is five or six come bundled as a unit, or one. I mean, you can buy one, but if you want to buy just like a little bulk purchase, you can buy 5. And then they give you a certain number of cartridges along with those 5 that you can pick. So if you want all GED cartridges, you can do that. But then you can also purchase cartridges separately for $50 each.
And anybody on the call, and I do know a couple of people who asked that question, if you're a DCF agency, so if you get DCF GED support from us already, we can purchase the study buddies. So please do get in touch with me. If you are with a jail program and you have DCF GED, you fill out the quarterly survey, I can absolutely help you purchase study buddies. So please keep that in mind. We have another question or a comment question. Angel says, because of security issues, so many technologies are not allowed. And I wanted to introduce electronic dictionaries, which have either adapter plugs or batteries. And the resistance is so overwhelming. So do you have suggestions?
Well, yeah, there is resistance to that. I will agree. We've seen that as well. But that is why our particular jail captain will not allow the units to go into the housing pods. As much as I would love to see that happen, she is requiring them to come to the multipurpose room. The way our classroom is set up within the jail is that it is actually visible from the booking desk at all times through two-way glass. So there's always a person staffed at the booking desk. They can see into that room the entire time they're sitting there, as well as the cameras that are in the room. So, that's where they feel most comfortable allowing people to use that equipment. And then it gets locked back into a cabinet after they leave. So.
And then Lynn, did Jefferson County purchase the cabinet, the lock cabinet, or is that something that jail, like, would that be one way to go about it? Is say we've got these devices, we can purchase a cabinet that locks, or what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's always good when you offer something that you can purchase and give to a jail, because they're publicly funded too and not necessarily rolling in the dough. So yeah, I mean, I think that would be really helpful. I did not write down how much I paid for that cabinet, but they come at various price points, and I'm thinking maybe $200 is what I remember.
Excellent. It's got one question or a comment, and then Deb Halquist has her hand up. So I'll read the comment first. How do you pick and choose who you serve? So do you consider if the person is sentenced, etc.?
The program we're running right now is completely voluntary. So we have posters that have been put up inside the pods. And we encourage people who don't have a high school diploma to participate in the program as the highest priority. So if we get more requests than we can accommodate, we will be selective about taking people that don't have the high school diploma. But right now, we've been able to accommodate everyone who has volunteered to participate. So.
Excellent. And I think
now the other thing is about the sentencing. The sentencing is different depending on whether or not we're serving our local county residents or the state inmates. So our facility is contracted for those 28 state inmates. They have already been sentenced, and the Department of Corrections requires those individuals to participate in education. So they are still not required to do it while they're in Jefferson, but that is a population that we definitely, make sure they know that the program exists.
Excellent. And it looks like hands are down, so we have a few more minutes. Any other comments or questions? Let's see. Missed the information about how to qualify for help with the study buddies. Yeah, so this is for our agencies who are Wisconsin Literacy member agencies who participate in the DCF GED grant. So a few years ago, agencies were, we received this money from DCF, Department of Children and Families, to help TANF eligible adults get their GED. And agencies who signed on to that program fill out a quarterly survey about their support of TANF eligible adults working toward their GED. And then they can, we're able to support them with GED materials and things like that. So you can, if you have questions about that, you can email your RLC. So Marcia, Anna, Shannon, Cassie, or me, whoever is your RLC, and we can get some more information about that. And then another question, do you require a TABE test before a student gets a study buddy?
Yes, we do the TABE test. A lot of the students that we are still serving right now, we had pre-COVID, and were actually administered the TABE test, prior to our shutdown. And the reason they're still in there is because they have, for many months, put a hold on transferring people to state facilities. So some of those people were tested pre-COVID, but now we're just doing the TABE through the glass visitation booths.
Excellent. All right, any final questions or comments? And you can always get in touch with me or with Lynn. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning, the session is recorded. So if you had colleagues that weren't able to tune in, we'll have a link that you can share, so we can spread the information. All right, Lynn, thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation and for answering all the questions and comments. And we've got one more session for our fall virtual conference. Our final session is at 2:30, virtual learning for low levels. Again, if you're not able to tune in, we'll have a recording link. So thank you everybody so much, and thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to meet with you today.
All right, goodbye, everyone. Oh, we're just getting comments that say thank you. Thanks for the work. All right, I'm gonna stop recording here, and I will, we had a hand up, but I think that was a mistake. All right, so take care, everybody.